one of the emotions I said hit me as a patient was the desperation. And you will, when you're sick like that, you will go to any degree, any level to try to feel better, which was obviously a common theme in that movie. Amanda, would you talk a little bit about DIY FMT transplants? Obviously, Saffron was desperate, and she went that route. Will you talk a little bit about the safety of a DIY FMT?
Yeah. So again, I'll kind of start off by going back to my health history. So I was diagnosed with UC same year as Pete in 2012. And this is a disease I had never heard of. I had UC and C. diff at the same time. So I was kind of double hit with these two diarrheal illnesses. And so after, many antibiotic treatments weren't working, I stumbled across these fecal transplants in Dr. Courts. I was lucky enough to already be working at the University of Minnesota, so this was right in my backyard. But it still took a really long time for me to actually get my transplant. And so there were moments where I got desperate. I remember I started looking up any place in the world. That's where I came across Dr. Brody in Australia. I came across Jim Adams, who's doing autism work at ASU in Arizona. And a few of these names started kind of popping up in research when I was really digging in. And then I also remember coming across a website called The Power of Poop. And The Power of Poop was a website designed to teach people how to do DIY transplants. I actually went on there today because it's been a while since I've been on the Power of Poop website. It is a single page and everything has been essentially removed, which I assume has bbeen either mandated by the FDA or one of the big pharma companies that's required them to take down their information. But through some other digging, I stumbled across a blog that somebody had written who referenced The Power of Poop and how they had UC and had done DIY transplants and it worked for them. And there was the archived Power of Poop website that you can still access. The thing with DIY is I get these mixed emotions when I think of those kind of tools because there's plenty out there. If you want to dig in the web on the internet, you will find plenty of instructional videos and all sorts of websites that will teach you how to do DIY transplants. People are doing these no matter what. Again, we talk about the desperation. Like, what that was like. I know what that was like. I think anybody who has these diseases and you're told there's no cure and you're suffering and you're spending this amount of money on medications, you do become desperate. And so when you realize you can't get access to these treatments that you're reading about and these amazing stories that you're hearing about, you'll do anything. And so people are going to do DIY transplants. And so for me, there's part of me that says, okay, well, at least these people that are trying to do good, like the Power of Poop was trying to do, was tell people how to do it safely. Give them instructions on how to choose your stool donor. Because that's where most of the risk comes from, is who you're going to select as your donor. So I think it's like there's that positivity that I feel of if people are going to do it anyway, let's at least give them the guidelines on how to do it safely. But I also feel it overhyped because you do just hear these success stories. People are not talking about their failures. You do not come across the failures on blogs nearly as much as you'll come across the success stories. So I think, it does give that false kind of sense of hope. Saffron obviously talked about that too, when you're given these actual statistics and you're still now one of them, it can kind of just really break that hope that you have. But in general, we do really believe the best model is the stool bank model, similar to what we run at the University of Minnesota, what Open Biome was doing, because these are donors that are medically thoroughly screened. If you were to talk to any stool donor themselves, they would tell you it is quite a process. It was no joke on the student who was talking about how it's harder to become a stool donor than to get into Harvard. It's very true. It's less than 5% of people who are interested in our donor program actually qualify. So you do have to kind of be some of the healthiest people on the planet. So I think the DIY, you're always running that risk. Again, we don't know long-term what some of these consequences are. In our experience, FMT seems very safe. So there's that part of me that says, okay, DIY, it's relatively safe if you're doing it the right way, being smart about it. But you're always running that risk. So I guess I understand that patient desperation. I understand these websites that want to try to help people do it safely, but at the same time, definitely talk to your doctor, let them know you're doing it. And if possible, obviously go through stool banks, but that's not an option for everybody.